having me. Thank you, Shawna, for inviting me. The last couple times we were here, I was here with my husband, and we did a February couples panel. It was really fun, super personal, talking about all the things marriage. It was great. But I left him at home tonight. It's not February. We're not talking about marriage. It's fine. But a little bit more personal about me. Who am I? First of all, I love the Lord, and I love His Word. I love talking about His Word. I love deep and intimate friendships. So what y'all have here is really special. Connection and having people on your team. I think that's really important. I love good books. A good book. I love hiking. I love chasing sunsets, and I love watching the stars. Those are some things about just me. Now, I'm also a mama. I have 3 kids. One is 18. He's a grown-up. He's responsible. He will go to jail. We have told him this multiple times. You do it, you go to jail. Okay. He has major senioritis. He's a senior at Ren. He's overdone. He's got seriously 2 classes. 2 high school classes. One, he's doing a Tri-County Tech English class. He's so over it. So y'all pray for him. Pray for him. He also loves people really well. He's got, for a guy that's 18, he is intentional and he sees people and he loves them really well. He's got a heart for the forgotten, which is beautiful. He's super book smart, not always common sense smart, but book smart, definitely. He's pursuing ministry, psychology, or sports medicine, or maybe all. I don't know. He's 18. I don't know. Y'all know? I don't know. His dream right now is to attend Southeastern University in Florida. He wants to move away. And we're okay. Not because we don't love him, but he's ready. He's ready. So that's Devin. Skylar's 17. And her struggle is to say no. So he's got senioritis. Her struggle is to say no. She wants to be part of all of the things. All of it. She loves it all. Which is really fun and hard at times. She's a talented dancer. So if your kids go to Anderson School of Dance, she is a dancer there. She sings. She leads worship for Hughes Middle School worship. She writes her own music, which she didn't get it from me, y'all. It's the Lord. She's smart, she's beautiful, she speaks truth, which can be hard at times, especially when you're in high school. And her dream right now is to attend AU. So, let's see. Then I have Kylie. She's 12. She's the baby. She's the cherry on top. She is a peacemaker to a fault. She wants everybody to be okay. She also is a dyslexic. She's a fighter. She works hard. She loves sports. She loves to build. She loves basketball and cross country. She's really well-rounded. She likes girly girl things, and then she likes to build. So it's awesome. She has her little pink, we call it a tool bag thing. Pink. Yeah, it's cool. Be what you want to be. And her dream, I love this, is to be 6 feet tall. And play basketball and build houses for the homeless. Love that. Tiny houses for the homeless. She is 5'7" and 12. She's working on her goals. Yes, she's working on them. I also homeschooled my older kids, big kids, until they were in 8th grade, and I homeschooled Kylie until last year. So all the mamas who are homeschooling in the room, props, and all those of you who are sending your kids to school, me too. Okay, I've lived in both those worlds. I also have worked as an instructor at the Y, so some of y'all may know me from swim lessons, do that too, or water fitness. I've been there for 16 years, and then I recently started, or was working at a local ministry as an event person and admin. So that is like my little world in a nutshell. What I'm here to talk to you tonight about is the book that you've been reading. Y'all reading the book? You don't have to say yes. You can be like, no. But the title of the book kind of says it all. It's not supposed to be this way. I'm always like that or this, I don't know, this way. And so our journey over the past 7 years has really been one of like, I'm not sure it's supposed to be this way. And so I just want to share a little bit about our journey and what I have learned, what I'm still learning. I will learn until I die. What God's purpose and plan is, and things that look like they're not supposed to here. So, backstory, my husband and I we're financial coaches for 12 years. My husband led the ministry at our church for 10 years. And we have this really sweet, beautiful, financial, miraculous story. We were like $80,000 in debt, and our house was going into foreclosure, and this was in 2008, I think, 6, 8, it's a long time ago. Anyways, the Lord miraculously helped us to where we saved our house and we got out of debt. And so that was a really beautiful story, but that was not the end of the story. The next part of this story is one of the things that helped us is my husband worked and helped a ministry in 2013 launch. And he was super close friends with the family that started this business, and worked for 6 months for free because he just believed in it so much and was passionate about it. And 5 years later, so that came in 2013, that relationship ended pretty horribly, and untruths were told about him and about us, and there was loss of friendship and then loss of a side hustle income too that was helping us get out of debt. So that was pretty devastating. And then 2015, this was a year, in March, my 36-year-old brother-in-law, my sister's husband, suddenly passed away. He had an enlarged heart, and it just stopped while he was sleeping. We didn't know that. A week later, Mark lost his full-time job. Mark is my husband, lost his full-time job because the company closed. And 6 days later, my grandfather passed away. So that was something. That season was probably the deepest mourning and pain I have literally ever. I wondered if we would rebound, come back. But also, I want to tell you there was so much joy and laughter in that season that it doesn't make sense. Just remembering somebody's life and spending time with people who love you and experiencing that together. I just remember going through those emotions of laughing hysterically and weeping on the floor. It was just something. So that was 2015, and we made it out. 2017, the company, so my husband got a job in Ohio. He worked remotely from here, which was great. We didn't have to move to Ohio because it's cold and cloudy, and I didn't really want to move. So he worked remotely here, and that company downsized in 2017, and Mark was like, okay, we got another job. Praise the Lord. 2019. So from 2017 to 2019, Mark worked for another company here locally. So we weren't working remote, which was kind of nice. This was a dream job. Loved it. He loved what he was doing. He loved the people that he was working with. The owners were our friends, and because of the owner's mishandling of clients and personal business, the company got driven to the ground. Done. Job done, 2019. At the same time, I was applying for Kylie to go to a school called Lakes and Bridges. It's in Easley, and it's a school specifically for dyslexic children. And I'm like, this is a dream, Lord, that you would plant this in Easley. We live kind of out that way. It just makes sense. But you have to go through this process of application and being accepted and assessment. It's a big, long process. But you got accepted. I was so excited. I was like, in the darkest season, we're so struggling with this, third job, full-time job loss, 4 with a side hustle, that you would put this school like a light for my sweet child who needs this. And they had a lottery because there were so many kids who need this school that there weren't enough spots. And I went to the lottery and I was like, believing the Lord, like, you know, you're sitting there and you're like, you know, the Lord has made a way. Her number's gonna be first, right? Pulled first. Nope, her number was pulled last for the waiting list. What? I walked out. Like, I couldn't even like talk to anybody. It was one of those moments where you're like, I don't even know. Walked out, sat in my car, and just wept. And like yelled at God and yelled at my husband and like yelled at everybody. Okay, that's all right. So, here's what I want to talk, okay. One more, 2020. Hey, 2020. He got a job. He was working local again. It was great. It felt good. He had some prospects of like being I can't even remember what it's called, a partner in this business. It was really exciting. So it just felt like some really positive things were happening. COVID happened. And he was let go. This was in July. In August, my part-time contract work ended because there were no events. Like, that's what I was doing. There's no events. Okay. So, why do I tell you all of this hard? Why do you need to know this about me? I think that if you would look at me, you would have no clue. I look pretty put together most of the time. When I come to speak somewhere, when I'm out in public, most of the time I have like put a hat on, and a mask, so you wouldn't recognize me ever. But in this environment, you wouldn't understand, you wouldn't know these things about me. And I think it's important, if we're gonna talk about it's not supposed to be this way, why am I talking about this? Well, I've kind of lived it for the last few years. And I've learned some things that I wanna pass on to you. I think that we say it's not supposed to be this way, but actually, it is supposed to be this way. On earth, it's supposed to be this way. You see, when God created Eve, who we come from, Adam and Eve, he created a perfect world, and that is what we are created for. So when things go wrong, when things don't work out, it's our souls crying out to God, our spirits crying out to God, saying, it's not supposed to be this way. And he's saying, you're right, it's not supposed to be this way. But in his greatness, he sent his perfect son to our imperfect world to share in this imperfectness and our sorrows and our struggles and our hardships. He came. He didn't have to. He said, okay, Father, that's what you want me to do, I'll do it. And he willingly came. And so, in knowing that, I have learned that God has more for me personally and my family than just an easy life, than just a nice paycheck, than just perfect kids. They're not perfect. Than just whatever I thought the way it was supposed to be is. He wanted depth, he wanted character, he wanted me to trust him and know him. And so in that, it requires personal transformation. It requires me kicking and screaming and saying it's not supposed to be this way, to saying, okay, what way does it need to be? All right? And so first point, I know that's a lot, but first point, God trusts his faithful in loss, not just in gain. And so if you feel like you're constantly losing something and you're like, God, what am I doing wrong? Maybe I deserve this? I don't know, do I deserve this? I just want you to know you are in a cloud of amazing witnesses if you're feeling like you're losing stuff constantly. it's interesting during some of these seasons, the stories in the Bible the Lord has brought me through. One of them was Job. Whoa! If you haven't read it, you should read it. And the first thing that stood out to me in Job was God said to the enemy, he said, "Have you considered my servant Job?" He laid him out there. He threw him under the bus. And I was like, I read that and I was like, what? Excuse me, Lord? Like, you just, huh? I was so flabbergasted that God would offer up this man who was so faithful to him, to the enemy, to test him. And so I think my theology was really off in thinking that those who are faithful to the Lord, well, they should just gain, right? They're just blessed and highly favored. They should just get. And that is not the case. Job was that. He was faithful. He recognized God in all he did. He all the rituals, all the things, he did them and more. And yet, God said, "Have you considered my servant Job?" He lost it all. He suffered immeasurably. He questioned God. This is some of my favorite parts of Job, is when he was questioning God and he's, wrestling with all of this. And he just kept questioning and he kept asking and he did not walk away. He kept at it. And eventually what happens? God speaks. And God, he blows my mind when I read what he talks about his character and who he is and what he says to Job. The vastness of who he is incredible. And he unveils his character little by little to Job. And Job is marked and changed. And he knows God because of what he walked through in a way that he could have never known God. And he knows people and their experiences and their suffering because of what he walked through. And he was marked by what happened to him. He had to treat people differently. He had to recognize God differently. And so I have learned that in my own life, that my experiences are not just for me. My losses, the way he trusts me with loss, is for others. And it's for me to understand people who are walking through, job loss, but I've also walked miscarriage. I've also walked, bad teenage decisions, and I've walked a lot of hard, and those are for him to use, for me to understand his creation, and so that I can empathize, and I can sit and I can cry with you, and I can sit and I can understand you, and I'm not like, well, what did you do wrong? Right? Because that's how we feel when we're going through something hard and we're walking. We feel like people are going to come and say, and what part of this is your fault? And maybe there is, right? Maybe that's true. And I think that we have to ask ourselves that, like, what part do I have to play in this? But sometimes it's like, man, that just really stinks. Like, that's just really hard. And understanding things happen and they're hard. And it's not a result of sin. Well, it is a result ultimately of sin, but not necessarily sin in somebody's life. Ultimately, all suffering goes back to sin, right? All right, so this next part, oh, I love this. I read this book, y'all. If you've never read it, you should. I wept a lot through it. It's great. But it's called Hind's Feet on High Places. If you've never read it, it's beautiful. It's fun. It's not fun. It's fun to listen to because she has a British accent and it's really mystical. It's an allegory. So it's symbolism and sort of if you read Chronicles of Narnia, that sort of thing. It's along that lines. But anyways, the second thing the Lord has taught me is to trust him as shepherd. And I just want to read this to you because I can't say it better than she said it. Much Afraid is the main character who has not had that name. And she is trying to get to the high places where the shepherd is. Okay? She has her two companions, Sorrow and Suffering. Woo, doesn't that sound familiar sometimes? And they are on this journey to the high places. And they go through all these things. They go through the valley of humiliation. They go through the valley of loss. They go through the forests of danger. So all these different things, I would call them trials, they walk through. And each time she picks up a stone and builds an altar. And then at the end of this journey, she talks about what she's learned and what she has found to be truth on her journey. So I'm just going to read you what she learned. First, she's talking to the shepherd. First, I learned I must accept with joy all that you allowed to happen to me on the way and everything to which the path led me. That I was never to try to evade it, but to accept it and lay down my own will at the altar and say, behold me, I am thy little handmaid, acceptance with joy. And he nodded and she kept going. Then I learned I must bear all that others were allowed to do against me, and to forgive with no trace of bitterness, and to say to thee, behold me, I am thy little handmaid, bearing with love, that I may receive power to bring good out of evil. The third thing that I learned was that you, my Lord, never regarded me as I actually was. I love this part. I was lame and weak, crooked and cowardly. You saw me as I would be when you had done what you promised, and you brought me to the high places. When it could truly be said, there is none that walks with such queenly ease, nor with such grace. You always treated me with the same love and graciousness as I were a queen already, not a wretched little much afraid. Oh, it's so beautiful. So he sees us as we are becoming, not as we are right now. And the fourth thing was, the first I really learned up here. Every circumstance in life, no matter how crooked or distorted and ugly it appears to be, if it is reacted to in love and forgiveness and obedient to your will, can be transformed. So important. And then the last part, therefore I began to think, my Lord, you purposely allow us to be brought into contact with bad and evil things that you want changed. Perhaps that is not the very reason that we were here. Perhaps that is the very reason that we are here in this world, where sin and sorrow and suffering and evil abound, so that we may let you teach us to react to them, that out of them we can create lovely qualities to live forever. That is the only really satisfactory way of dealing with evil, not simply binding it so that it cannot work harm, but whenever possible, overcoming it with good. So her journey led her to some really dark places, but she learned to trust the shepherd, that his purpose for her was good, and that he saw her as no one else in her world saw her. He saw what she would be and not what she was. And I think the shepherd wants you to know that, wants us to know that. He wants you to know that he sees you as you are in his world and not as you are in this world. And the things we go through, they teach us to become closer to who he's calling us to be. It's not it's not so that he's toying with our lives and making, this bad. It's not fun for him to do that. There's real purpose in it. All right. So, lastly, one of the verses that I hold tightly to and I really felt like impacted me with this book, but also learning to trust the Father and the Shepherd, is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your paths. That means in your ways of loss too, in your ways of suffering, in your ways of hardship. Acknowledge him. Take it to him. And he will direct your paths, even if it feels like he's not. He is. He is at work. He is always at work. I wanted to share the story with you. The Lord speaks to me through my children really often. I don't know if he does that with you. Like something happens and I'm like, oh. And then the Lord's like, yeah, me too. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, that's good. So my older two are 17 months apart. Devin's 18, Skylar's 17. Skylar turned 16 last year. Okay, good. We're on the same page. And she wanted to have this epic 16th birthday party, but she wouldn't tell us what she wanted. And I've learned with this chat, she's very detailed. And so you got to ask the questions and ask for what is this party you were thinking about? And she wouldn't tell us. And so I was like, okay, fine. we're just gonna have a family dinner and that'll be that. Happy 16th. Well, in the background, I'm texting her friends and her small group leader, and we're planning an epic surprise party. Not the one that she's told me that she wanted, because she didn't tell me. I don't know what she wanted. But the one that I'm like, we're giving you. So if you've ever been to Mellow Mushroom, there's an upstairs room. So we decked it out with 16 everything, lights, music, dance, all the things, right? And I had about 15 minutes between the time that everything was done, the food was ordered, the lights were on, all the things, and from the time her small group came and brought her in. And as I was looking around, like, my heart was racing, and I was so excited, and I was like, she's gonna love this, and I'm like, I love this. This is so great. Like, I was like, she has no idea, and I am so, like, I'm out of my mind so excited, and she has no idea. You know, even earlier that day, she was like weepy, like, everybody forgot about my birthday, and nobody's doing anything special for my 16th, and she was just, it wasn't like whiny or anything, she was just expressing how she felt, and I was like, I like felt bad, but also wanted to laugh because I knew it was coming, right? She had no idea. So we had, her small group leader was texting me like their location. You know, I don't know how she did it without her not knowing, but she was texting me her location, and I knew when they were about to walk in the door, and I had everybody come out. There's like a little landing spot, and there were a lot of people, probably past fire code, on that landing spot. And when she came in, she had no idea. Her eyes were like, you know, looking for whatever they were doing. I don't know what her small group leader convinced her that they were there to do. But everybody all at once yelled surprise, and she looked up like, and then you could see she was like, oh my word, this is for me. Tears and like shaking, and she was pumped. But in that 15 minutes before she arrived, the Lord spoke to me, and he said, so good. If as an earthly parent you feel this overwhelmed by how much joy there is in surprising your child with a party that she is not expecting, how much more overwhelmed am I when I know the plans I have prepared for you, but it isn't time just yet to let you in on what has been prepared for you. Okay. So, in all this hard that I've talked about, he is always working. If he's going to speak to me, if I'm that excited about my child and I'm so imperfect, I do not get it right, I mess up, and I want to laugh when she's crying because I know it's coming. God probably doesn't do that. Just me, you know? But he's working, he's preparing, he's making a way in the loss of friendship, in the loss of children, and miscarriage, in hardship in marriage, in divorce, in loss of jobs and financial hardship, in whatever your heart is. It's somebody, you have a heart. Everyone does. If you don't have one now, you will have one. Whatever it is, he's working. In the crushing and in the ruins of whatever you're walking through, like Lisa said in the book, dust can be made into clay that can be molded and shaped. So even when I can't see it, hear, or feel it, he's not hiding. He is not celebrating your hardship. He's not celebrating your pain and suffering. He is saying, the way it is here, it is not supposed to be that way, but I will be with you. I will not forsake you. I am close to the brokenhearted, and I save the crushed in spirit. I will redeem what was lost, and I will complete the work that I started. And his hope in this chapter, or chapters, does not have the final word over our lives. We will go to a place where it is where it's supposed to be. We will go, and we will be with him in full perfection. We will be fully perfected. And until that day, we will hold tightly to his truth, his word. We will trust him, and we will believe he is working. And I wanted so badly to have like a perfect wrap up, beautiful bow on the package, and like the Lord as, you know, we have jobs and the things are good. And my husband did start a company, and that's been fun. However, that's a slow something, right? But I think God in His sovereignty knew that you and us, we need people who don't have a bow perfectly wrapped around our package. Sometimes it's in the work, it's in the process, and that's okay, and it's still His plan, and He's still good, even in the midst. Even when it looks like He's not good, His character is good. My circumstances don't necessarily have to be good to define His goodness. He is always good. And so I'm just here to remind you, to remind me that He's always working, He's always present, and this isn't it. And I feel like one of the things that we need to do in our hard seasons and all seasons is take our thoughts captive and tell ourselves the truth. Like, what are the scriptures that you're remembering when the enemy wants to tell you, you know what, this could be it. Like, this could be all for you. Done. Your chapter's closed. Your book has been written. What is the truth that God said? That's not what He says. He says, He who began a good work in you, He will be faithful to complete it. That's the truth. What truths are you holding on to? What truths am I holding on to? And I love this, John 16:33. I love this because the preface part of it is His promise is that in Him we will have peace. And then He says, in this world we will have trouble. He says you will have peace. And then He says the promise is though, you're going to have trouble. And then we call this the holy butt in our house. And there's this holy butt. Big butt. But take heart. He has overcome this world. I have overcome this world. Jesus said that. So what truth are you telling yourself? Are you? I have some questions. I don't know if y'all want to answer them. You can take them home. You can journal through them. I'm just going to read them real quick. I can get into your people. That is not them. Hold on. Super professional here. Here we go. All right, sorry. It's like a study guide. Y'all are welcome to it. I've lived this, so like writing this was super easy because I have lots more I could say, but I won't because you'll be asleep. It's fine. So number one, back to our first point, in what ways has God trusted you with loss? Where have you felt like there's something wrong with me, I'm damaged, I did something wrong, but actually God was trusting you with loss? What lies have you believed about loss? Who have you judged, misunderstood because they were walking through a season of tragedy, hardship, or loss? And what have you learned about God's character in times that you feel like that in this season of it's not supposed to be this way? Okay, so number two, that's just topic one. Two, who is walking with you? Who's your sorrow and suffering? Who are those companions that are walking with you in hardship, suffering, pain, and loss? First of all, I want to say if you don't have those people, pray and ask God for those people. He will bring them. He is faithful. Are you, acceptance with joy, willing to accept with joy all that the shepherd has allowed? Sometimes. Are you bearing all things with full forgiveness and no trace of bitterness? Side note, do you need help with this? Do you need to talk to a friend? Do you need counseling? Those are all on the table. And third question, do you believe the shepherd sees you as you are in the high places, not just as you are now? And do you want to see others in His light rather than the darkness of this world? Last question on this one. Do you believe that He is able to transform your, it's not supposed to be this way season, time, moment, into beauty from ashes and to overcome good with evil? Number three, where is He working? Because He is. So when I say that, I know that there are seasons of quiet when the party's being planned and you can't see what's going on, right? When there's work going on in the background. So where do you feel like He is being quiet? Do you believe He's preparing something in that quiet space? Be honest about that. Like, do you believe that? Or there are times I don't believe that. There's still days that I wrestle with, like, what is the plan? What are we doing? So be honest with Him about that. He can handle it, I assure you. Even if you don't see that finished work on this side of heaven, on this side of heaven, will you still trust him? Have you taken time to ask him to speak to you specifically? Do I have time for one more story? Okay, one more story. After I realized that my contract work that I loved was coming to an end, I was like, Lord, I don't know what you're doing. I know that you have promises for me. I have had some really sweet times with the Lord where he showed me like his goodness, and like I see where we're going. It gets lost sometimes in the fog, but I see where we're going. And so I was like having this moment in the car. I don't know if you have these moments with the Lord. If y'all ever see me having these moments, just keep driving, it's fine. I'm all like crying and red faced and like talking to God. I was at a stoplight on exit. So if you're going out 81 towards exit 27, y'all know what I'm talking about. There's the interstate there. I'm having this moment with God, and I'm like kind of in a fog, but kind of like, talking to God. And I'm like, I need to know, Lord, that you remember your promises. I remember your promises. I know you're God. I know you're supposed to know all things. But I need to know that you remember your promises, what you've spoken to me. And I know this is super cheesy and I don't really care. Listen, I was in this fog, focused on the light, focused on the Lord, and I literally said, I need you to remember your promises out loud. And I look over out of the fog, like trying to look at the driver next to me, I don't know why. And over the interstate was a huge rainbow. And we all know what that means, right? Like in the Bible, it is a symbol of his promise. And I was like, well, that was quick. Thank you. And then I was like, I don't know if that was for me, and trying to justify like that was so fast, because God sometimes doesn't talk that fast to me. But then I was like, no, I'm taking it. That's for me. He remembers. And so I don't know how he speaks to you, how he reminds you of things, but ask him to. He might not remind you with the rainbow in 1 second. He doesn't always do that with me either, but I'm going to ask. He's our Father. He's good. And he's not like an earthly father who might mess up and like yell at you. He's good. So ask him to reveal himself to you. It has said this: feel the freedom to speak all that you feel to your Father. He's not scared. He's not mad at you. He's not disappointed in what you're saying. He's not disappointed by your feelings or your thoughts. He wants to know you, and he wants you to get it out. So tell him. And then after you have said all that you need to say, look up. Your help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. I have all this if y'all want it. I have some books of the Bible that you can read that talk about loss and tragedy and like the ways that the Lord worked in them, because there are lots of them. And then all the scripture that I taught through tonight is on this. So, can I pray for y'all? Okay, I'd love to pray for y'all. Lord, I just thank you for this night. I thank you for these women who took time out of their lives to come and love each other and get to know each other and come and hear the words that you've given me. God, I pray that you would remove the hard and heavy in this moment, and that you would bring truth, your grace, and reveal your character to each woman here tonight. God, we all have different circumstances. We all have different life experiences. Yet you are working in every single one of us. And I pray that you would let the scales fall off the eyes. And I pray that your work would be so evident and so real that they would have to write it down. They would have to tell a friend that they just could not contain what they have seen. God, you're good even when life is hard, even when it's not supposed to be this way. You're good. And we just thank you so much right now for your son, Jesus, God, that you sent your son to live in an imperfect world with imperfect people, even though he was completely perfect and did not have to. I'm so amazed by that, so overwhelmed by that, and so grateful for that. And I pray that that message would be so embedded in our hearts that you chose to come after us and come be with us through every circumstance in this life. Lord, I thank you that you are that you are here, you're with us. And I give you all the praise and Jesus' name.